Zimbabwe coup of 2017, a bloodless correction of gross abuse of power. For 37 years, Zimbabwe was plagued by dictatorship, corruption, police brutality, economic meltdown, and gross violation of human rights. The independence that they won in 1980 was only flag and anthem, as the new rulers were new wine in old bottles. They simply adopted the oppression from their white colonial masters and maybe perfected it. A military state was put in place, and no one dreamt of removing the sacred Robert Gabriel Mugabe from power. 2017 saw the dawn of a new era as the military of Zimbabwe took it upon themselves to liberate the masses once again from the quagmire of poverty and bring back democracy to Zimbabwe via a coup. It was a bloodless correction of gross abuse of power as the Gushungo regime came to an end. Let's look at the background, the 2007 attempted coup. In 2007, there was an alleged organized coup that was crushed as the government got intel from a traitor in Paris who was opposed to the coup. 400 soldiers and high-ranking officials were involved. Rugeje Engelbert, Air Marshal Elson Moyo, Captain Albert Matapo, and Colonel Ben Ncube were apprehended. It is alleged that they planned to remove Robert Mugabe from power and ask Emmerson Mnangagwa, who was then Minister of Rural Housing, to be president. The question is, how can you plan a coup before asking the supposed president to assume power, or with the incoming president not involved? Treason charges were laid, but no trial took place, and several men were put in prison, but not Rugeje, Ncube, and Moyo. They were only released in 2014. Moyo, Rugeje, and Ncube remained in the army. Mnangagwa remained in office. A lot of events happened between 2007 and 2017. Ngwena was now amongst those untrustworthy, and it fell out of the first family's grace. The then First Lady openly condemned him in public and allegedly tried to poison him with an ice cream from Kushungo Dairies. He was airlifted to South Africa for medical treatment. Constantine Chiwenga, the commander of Defense Forces, was out on a military exchange in China. These two men were key to the coup, even if they seemed as inactive during the execution. They took 10 years to plan a clear approach to the throne. What if the ice cream story was a political gimmick to take Mnangagwa out of the picture so as to go ahead with the coup? Food for thought. On the 14th of November 2017, the Zimbabwe Defense Forces gathered in Harare and took over ZBC and other key areas of the city. On the 15th, they issued a statement saying it was not a coup. The president of Zimbabwe is safe, and we are only targeting criminals around the president. And all things were going to go back to normal once the criminals were apprehended. Mugabe confirmed of his safety as well as of his family on a call with President Zuma of South Africa. Constantine Chiwenga, the commander of the Defense Forces, had released a statement prior to say political pages of senior officials like the Crocodile should stop, which came as the G40 initiative. Chiwenga was then accused of inciting violence and treason. Later, the CIO director Albert Ngulube was arrested after leaving Mugabe's residence, deeming the intelligence useless as Robert relied upon them for support. He was given the taste of his own medicine as he was severely tortured. On the 15th, the army raided homes of the criminals that were surrounding the president, for example, Kasukuwere, Jonathan Moyo, and Chombo, with the latter being detained after $10 million was found in his house. Police duties were restricted as Commissioner Chihuri was missing due to an early arrest. SB Moyo, the defense spokesperson, urged all security forces to go back to their barrack even when on leave for the good of the country. The army was prepared to deal with violence. He had already opened that route. In all this, there was so much respect for the citizens, something that had not happened in a very long time. Surely Mao's principles were upheld. Gunfires were shot near the State House. The parliament was still blocked, and many other key points, like the courthouse. For the first time in a very long time, the patriotic songs were met with cheer. They meant something for the new generation. Wednesday was a bit slow, with armored vehicles still patrolling the streets. The Youth League president made his famous statement. He had vowed to die for the first family, and he apologized to the army, saying, "It's normal for young people to make mistakes." Tsvangirai, who had also returned home from his cancer treatment, called for Mugabe to step down and allow a democracy to reign. On the 17th, Mugabe presided over his last graduation ceremony at Zimbabwe Open University. He was allowed to go out of the State House. Was this a coup, whereby you are allowed to go out and be a president once more? The military was very civil. They did not want to hurt the citizens who were graduating that day from meeting their chancellor. The 18th saw the masses of Zimbabwe joining with the defense forces to march against Mugabe's reign. The march was a first of its time and was well attended. It was a peaceful march and was full of celebrations as RG was supposed to resign. For the first time, the presidential motorcade was booed, something that would lead to death previously. On the 19th, millions of Zimbabweans and the world at large were glued on their televisions to hear his resignation speech as he was fired from his party together with his wife and 20 other members earlier. He ignored the party's action and went ahead to say he was going to preside over upcoming conference. He gave a very long speech in which he said the famous sovereignty statements, but nothing about resignation. Most people were amazed and disappointed at his last phrase, "Asante sana," and no resignation. The future of the Zimbabwean politics hung on a balance, but the Zimbabwe Defense Forces were determined to proceed with the impeachment motion. RG was impeached on the basis of allowing his wife to take over constitutional power. The motion was to be voted into effect in 48 hours. Chiwenga came back from China and was accused of planning with the Chinese to forcefully take over, but he dismissed all allegations as coincidental. He was also supposed to be arrested at the airport upon his arrival, but the military disguised his baggage carriers, outnumbered the police at the airport, and brought him to safety. He then took to the stage and announced that Mnangagwa would come back to assume the throne. The coup was an operation to restore legacy. RG called the cabinet for a meeting, but 17 were absent, which showed his loss of power. Mnangagwa wrote a letter to the president urging him to resign, but he could not meet in person due to fear for his safety. The good news, or rather the best news of all time, came at 1800 hours. Mugabe has resigned. Music to the world's ears, to all Zimbabweans, young and old. For the first time, history books would be taken to the publishing house to revise who was the president and update who were the heroes. The dusty frames with his excellence would be trashed for the first time since 1980. What a glorious day for the people of Zimbabwe. The vice president, Pelekezela Mpogo, became acting president, pending nomination of a new candidate. He was out of the country, unfortunately, at the time, and did not truly serve at all. A lifetime chance of being in the Guinness Books of Records as the shortest serving president, gone with the wind. ZANU-PF nominated Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa, and he assumed the throne within 48 hours. Where are the generals of the 2007 coup? Rugeje was promoted to lieutenant general and national political commissar since 2017. Elson Moyo, also the cousin of SB Moyo, is now commander of the Air Force of Zimbabwe since 2017. A bloodless coup, a dawn of a new era, a chance at democracy and respect of the citizen. all demonstrated in a few days. What then does the new Zimbabwe has in store for its citizens? Asante sana.